Welcome to Offsite Dirt, the podcast committed to news and insight in the offsite construction industry. Join our team of experts covering modern methods of construction, high-performance build, lean manufacturing, prefab, and beyond. Here's the dirt on Offsite Dirt. We would like to thank our partner, Wesco, for being our official Offsite Dirt sponsor.
We provide innovative supply chain solutions every hour, every day, all around the globe. Our people roll up their sleeves and help create a world you can depend on. Focusing on the details, the challenges, and the unexpected, so that you can live life uninterrupted. Wesco. Ingenuity delivered.
Hello and welcome to the Offsite Construction Series here on Offsite Dirt. We are talking modular with ROC Modular from Southern Alberta, Canada. And Rhys Kane is the Director of New Business. I have seen him many times over my career and very excited that we are able to have this conversation about what they're doing up in Canada. So Rhys, how are you today?
Very good. Nice to see you. How are you?
I'm doing great. I would love if you wouldn't mind just giving us a little background about yourself and your role at the company.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on today. Yeah, all things modular. So I've been in modular for coming up for a decade now.
That's not possible. Come on, really?
Isn't it? Isn't it crazy? So yeah, it's an exciting place to be and has been since I joined the industry. It's just kind of on that trajectory and got a real tailwind with it. When I started, it was actually with a company doing shipping container conversions, so converting shipping containers into habitable spaces for, residential units, whether it's homeless shelters and things like that. But actually, we started to really do some quite sophisticated projects with those, doing a couple of hotels. We did a seniors complex and some other multi-family buildings. So there was some limitations that we found with containers in terms of the dimensions, and started doing more into the steel modular. So had some good exposure to volumetric steel modular projects, and then had an opportunity to transition over to wood frame modular, which is where I am now, with ROC doing wood frame modular projects. And the last few years I've really been focusing on that, and primarily within the multifamily affordable housing space, permanent modular projects for seniors complexes, student dorms, anything multi-unit, multi-story residential, focusing on, projects across Western Canada and also down into the US. The previous company I worked for, I was kind of the main focus was exporting down into the US. The Canadian dollar exchange is very favorable, and you can transport these modules free trade over the border, free of tariffs and red tape, and building codes, building standards are very similar. All the materials that we use, is all US UL certified. The way that we build, the code requirements, the types of windows we put in is very similar to projects that we look at in, say Montana or down into Colorado or, Washington. These are sort of locations really close to our factory. We're really sort of riding the wave. I've been very involved. I've seen, you and I have had many conversations over the years, really trying to push, kind of rising tide floats all boats with the modular industry in general. We're very active in the industry in terms of trying to grow it all together and gain kind of traction. And so I sit on the Canadian Council of the Modular Building Institute, for example. I'm on the PR marketing committee for the Modular Building Institute. Great to see you there, the World of Modular conference recently. It was nice to see you in person after all these years. I mean, with COVID as well, it was a few years of not even seeing anyone. So that was fun. Yeah, very active in the industry. Really trying to get this industry moving forward. And there's such a big push right now. There's so much interest around modular in Canada from the government. There's factories getting big government dollars to invest in factory expansions, and there's lots of government dollars going towards projects. There's an initiative in Canada called the Rapid Housing Initiative, which is great for the modular industry because projects need to be built as fast as they can, and that's really where modular shines. And so yeah, it's a great place to be, and excited to be on Offsite Dirt today.
Oh, thank you. And likewise, it is great that we're having this opportunity and to explain the versatility of this factory. And I love that you are also have figured out how to build in the United States, because really it's that transition of making sure that we have those right codes and those right building applications. I'd love to jump into some of the stories that you have about some of the projects that you've done. I know that you guys do multifamily. I know that you do housing for workers and employees. And I also know that you guys do hotels and senior and student housing, and it's phenomenal to see this versatility come out of the factory. Can you pick up on a couple of different projects and let us know how those went, maybe the size of them? Give me just a little bit of scope so people can understand a little bit more about how you guys built with this wood frame product.
Yeah, yeah. So from a factory perspective, the industry is still kind of growing and gaining traction. So you've really got to level load the factory. We really want to maintain that, keep the factory busy, and there's ebbs and flows in some of the projects. So we actually have a little bit of a diversity in the types of projects that we go after. Most of what we do is multi-unit, multi-story, affordable housing, market rate, workforce housing type projects, but we also do some commercial work. We do some education, so classrooms, portable classrooms and offices. And we also have some industrial work. So the oil and gas industry, the energy sector, modular is a really good fit for camps, workforce camps, housing up in northern Canada. So by having that flexibility of product offering, we can really make sure we can keep, the factory busy. And that's good advice for anyone thinking of setting up a factory. There's definitely factories that really focus on one product, and as long as you can keep busy with that, then that's great because you get really good at it. But we haven't always found over the years that we can keep busy. But yeah, that most of the work that we do is this multi-unit, multi-story housing out in Western Canada. So we have many projects that have gone that are typically in that sort of 3 to 5 story range. We've done a couple of 6-story. We've got another 6-story coming up in Vancouver here pretty soon. Most of them are double loaded corridor design. So the module contains a suite with a hallway in the middle and a suite by their end. That's a really efficient design for what we do. And out of that, we really have that kind of kit of parts, that standardized, repeatable library of unit types that is really efficient for our factory and really lends itself well to rapid design programs from our consultant teams. So yeah, that in Western Canada has been very good. Also, student housing. There's a big, huge post-secondary need for housing across North America, and we've been involved in those. There's that project type, extremely repeatable units, economies of scale in the building. So we've done some student housing projects. They've been very effective. So that's most of what we've done in Western Canada, and the BC government has really had a big program and a big push that really helps the industry. When a government agency, really embraces modular and says, we need fast track housing. We've got a huge housing crisis, and whether you're down in Denver or whether you're down in, in the Bay Area, it's the same pressures on housing and pressures on homelessness and getting things built. So Vancouver's the BC housing program's a really good one to research if you're interested in modular and what they've done, what's been done. And there's even a temporary program where sites were identified that you couldn't put a permanent building on them currently because it might be developed in the future. But the city identified that, hey, we could put what's considered a temporary building, on a temporary relocatable steel foundation, and then we can put a 3-story building on top. So it's a little different to some of the, really transient sort of, lightweight structures or tent type cities. These are actually, as good as a permanent building, 3 stories, tall, meeting all permanent building codes, but effectively by the nature of the fact that they were built modular, that asset can be moved in the future. So from a government perspective, it might be there 5 years, it might be there 25, 30 years. It can meet the code and requirements to stay there a long time. But if you have a church site or you have a parking lot somewhere that's underutilized, you can put one of these buildings on, and then in 5 years' time, move it and still have that asset to move. So that's been a really good program, and that you should definitely look that one up as well. And then down into the US, like I mentioned, Canadian dollar is very favorable. free trade across the border. And, as the US has such a huge requirement, for housing, and not all the US factories can keep up with demand, developers really need to see that there's factory availability and, that can meet the demand for their projects. And then they'll commit to modular, more likely, whether it's overseas, Chinese factories or European factories. But right here across the border in Canada, there's a direct flight from Denver to Calgary. It's a 2-hour flight, same time zone, very easy to do business. You can do a day trip, come up here, meet with us, see the factory, check out the mods, and back, which is, it's really important when you're thinking architects, engineers need to come up and see these modules before they're delivered. So that's a kind of a strong position that the Canadian factories have. And also building codes are very similar. And in terms of, the requirements for modular building, typically it's out of state and it's similar for us. So if a factory is in Idaho, for instance, which a lot of them are, and they're delivering down into California, they have to register with the state of California's factory built housing program, just like we would. They have to use their third-party inspection agency, just like we would, to certify the modules. And we put the insignias on the mods, no different to any of those factories. So I think it's great competition. It's great for the industry. The more, competent, very experienced modular factories with good track record, are in the industry, and good financial backing, good bonding capacity. We need successful factories and successful projects to really elevate this industry. So we, that's where we fit. We have good bonding capacity, good track record to take on these bigger projects. So yeah, that's our sort of action into the US. In terms of specific projects, we have a really nice little townhouse development going down into Seattle right now, with a developer that is doing some great things. They've identified a way to really create a repeatable opportunity with modular by, identifying sites that the same design can be put on over and over again, and then they can just, put an order in with the factory and say, hey, we need another 10 of these, or whatever it is. So.
You're bringing up such a good point. You've labeled so many things that are these hot topics, right, with modular construction, and you've touched on every single one. And when we're talking about the factory and the factory line, in the last year, we've seen a lot of factories close. And I think you're bringing up a really good point, Rhys, is that we need to be vertically integrated, but we also have to be nimble as to what type of products we're going to use, and be able to use them in several different ways. So one, love that conversation, and I love that you bring it there. Two, I love that you're focusing in on the markets that really value modular construction, like the Colorado market, like the California market, like the Idaho market. All those markets on the West Coast it's like they get it, right? I feel like I'm in the South, and so I feel like we're moving a little bit closer. I feel like the East has got it. I think the middle of the states, we're integrating, right? I know Texas is a big believer in modular construction. So you're definitely, you're hitting on all these hot topics and all these hot points that really do need to be conveyed, because as we are seeing this industry grow, and I love the idea, I advocate for this all the time, because I feel like it scares people. I feel like there's more fear than understanding, and I feel as an industry we're constantly educating. And one of the things that you brought up is the developers that understand standardization and duplication, utilizing plans that can be used. Of course, all sites are going to be specific. All sites are going to be different, but to utilize a plan set that can continue to be used over and over again, it makes it easier for the factory. It makes it easier for productivity to come out. Like for you, I'm guessing that's a really great client, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you say, you can't just literally take a building and put it on another site. There's always highest and best use considerations, and zoning and setbacks and height considerations. But
all that good stuff, all those millions of things that you have to talk with the pre-construction team, right?
But when you're working with the same owner again and again, you get familiar with the unit types, the finishes. Even if you've got standardized procurement that you can reorder kitchens, reorder flooring, it just really fast tracks. There's a lot of projects where you're really starting from scratch every time. And you can't, as a modular company like us, we work for the client. It's not, hey, what type of faucet do you use, right? That's not the type of factory that we are. We are design build. We're working for the client's requirements. If we're building a Marriott hotel, for instance, right, we have to meet Marriott spec. But then if we do another Marriott and another Marriott and another Marriott, right, like we've got those standardized procurement, we've got the lists of things, we've got the way we're doing it. So, for modular, it's great when a developer, nonprofit, really commits to the concept of modular and does projects more over and over, then that really is beneficial for sure.
And they're seeing a cost savings. I mean, it may not be what everybody envisions in their mind, but there's still a cost savings, right? You're not redesigning the floor plans, you're utilizing the same ones, so you don't have that cost again. You're utilizing, like you were saying, procurement in the materials, and you know what those costs are. So there is a cost savings not only on the actual build time, because we know that that is one thing that modular really does so well. We are executing great timelines, but there is a cost savings that does come along with duplication, right?
Absolutely. The more you do, the better you get, and like in anything in life. And it's not just cost savings, it's cost certainty. That's so important, right? Like knowing that, the project's going to be delivered much faster. It's going to be done in a year, and you're going to get a certainty of cost. That's huge, especially for the nonprofit sector. Huge knowing that that's the case. There's no project overruns. We talked about these markets that really are constrained by labor, by the construction seasons, like Colorado, for instance. The mountain parks regions where they just can't get people out to build. So if you're susceptible to maybe a 3-year construction cycle and modular can bring it down to a 1.5 years, then that's just so,
you're
just
winning on interest, right? Interest alone on those loans it's incredible. Those are big costs.
Yeah.
I agree with you. So you and I were at the World of Modular, and there was probably, I'm going to say 300 or 400 different types of projects and stuff that were noted and were displayed. And your team actually won a couple awards. What awards did you guys win?
Funny you should mention that. We literally have this by me all the time. So we were so over the moon because we entered into a few categories, and we were very like over the moon and overwhelmed and honored to have received 4 awards actually. So we did a couple of projects in Alberta, they're drug recovery communities, so really important projects for the government of Alberta infrastructure. They're health recovery communities where people go for rehab and drug addiction issues. So modular was a way to provide a high quality building in a short period of time, and they needed these buildings across multiple sites around Alberta, so that repeatability element that we just talked about. So the Red Deer recovery community, we entered into the healthcare category, and it won first place, which was awesome, and also won the Judges' Choice Award. So the Judges' Choice Award is the category that's voted by all the judges across all the categories as the highest scoring project across them, which was unbelievable. We couldn't believe it. And a week later, we had our town hall at the factory down in Bow Island, and I showed the factory guys, and they just were so happy, right? Because they don't see this kind of stuff. They see the modules leave, and then so we always try and show photos and finished articles and any press releases that come out from it. But I said to them, like, this is amazing, because there was projects from China, there was a 40-story tower from the UK, there was a project from South Korea, Australia, all across the US. And little old Bow Island factory won this award. So so it really hit home, and they were very proud. And it's like, credit to those guys. That was a tough project. That's as hard as you can get in terms of the energy performance, the sustainability elements of it, and healthcare. If you build healthcare, there's a lot more considerations to that. So yeah, really happy with that one. And then the other project we won was it's a really important project. It's actually one of those relocatable projects that I talked about. So Astor Place in Richmond in BC, it's a 3-story relocatable multifamily building, 40 units of supportive housing for the homeless population in Richmond. And the foundation is a steel multi-point triodetic foundation. The foundation was designed for the Canadian North. So it's designed for the permafrost. So it sits as a raft slab across the ground, and it's like a scaffold structure. Essentially, you can put a building on top and in the future move it. So that was a really cool project, and won the honorable mention in the supportive housing relocatable category, but also won the best of show. So we were stoked at that, really happy.
Wow, congratulations. That's well deserved. You know, when you put in the hard work and you dedicate yourself to good development and good ideas, it's amazing what can happen, right?
Yeah, yeah, and super cool for the factory guys to see that as
Yeah,
well
I
and
love
get
that you
awards.
mentioned
Yeah,
that. And I,
yeah,
I also heard another conversation that you had, and that you guys do a monthly town housing and a town call with the people in the
yeah.
factory. I think that's wonderful. And I love that we are finding out more and more that the factories that succeed, obviously, we've got to get projects and cash flow and making things happen there. But really, truly, it's the people that actually work inside those factories. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and it's amazing. Our president, Joe Kiss, he's absolutely committed to a monthly town hall. Like without fail, he goes down, we go down, and every month we put on a big lunch for the whole factory. There's 120 guys in the factory. Sorry, guys and gals in the factory, 120 every month without fail. We go down, put on a lunch, make some kind of a presentation, talk updates, whatever, on safety, on quality, on projects. They want to know there's work coming, right? They want to know there's projects coming up and their jobs are safe. So we talk about work coming up, and we give out swag, whether it's a red t-shirt or it's a new mug or a new hat. We did some hats recently. So that, I think that's really important, and they really like it. And it's really good for business. It's an easy thing to not do, right? It's an easy thing to go, oh, we'll cancel this month and we'll do next month, but we never do that, and that's kudos to the business, and I love it. I think it's great. So
I do too. And I think it's one of those ways for people to connect and have collaboration and to be excited about what's happening and feeling involved.
yeah, 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 and they're proud. We have this kind of slogan of like, quality is really important in what we do. The quality checks, meeting the state, insignias and things, but also just being proud, right? Like we have a tagline called "Building Spaces for People to Thrive." We're sending out homeless shelters. We're sending out housing for people, whether it's market rate or whether it's missing middle, or whether it's, heavily subsidized affordable. We're sending out these units for people to live in. So we want to treat it like we would be living in there. And everything we do, we're incredibly proud of the units that we send out. And it's real social impact. That's one of the reasons I love being in the industry, right? What we're doing is really making a difference. There's a housing crisis. Every news thing you read is housing crisis, issues with costs. And I think the modular industry, it's not the answer to everything, right? It's not the total silver bullet, but it definitely has a big part to play, particularly on that, subsidized housing side, workforce housing side of things.
So where do you see you guys going in 2025? What's the future look like for ROC Modular?
Well, keeping the factory busy, that's the main thing. So we've got a really good pipeline of projects. We've currently got a project going through the factory that's heading to Vancouver. It's a 3-story affordable housing complex. It's for women with children at risk. So another big social impact project. Right after that, we're building a 6-story project that's heading to Surrey in BC. So 6-story, there's not many 6-story modular buildings that have been completed wood frame. So very excited about that one. That's heading out. And then we've got a number of other of these multifamily affordable housing projects. There's a new program in BC called BC Builds, and there's some projects associated with that. And that's actually a little different because it's tied to more of the missing middle. So they're subsidizing market rate housing for the missing middle. So workforce housing in small towns across BC. So really excited about that. We're even building cabins in ski towns for hospitality clients. With post-COVID, that hospitality market's coming back a little bit. So we're excited for those. And we'll be attending some of the other expos. So there's an offsite expo coming up in Berkeley in a few weeks, and there's one in Denver in September, which we'll be attending. So chance to fly the flag for the Canadian factories of these US expos as well.
Absolutely. Well, ROC Modular is making such an impact on so many people, the people that work there, the people that actually get to live in their buildings, and the ones that get to design them. Thank you so much, Rhys, for making the time. It is spectacular to see your factory just flourishing and really realizing the impact and the difference that we can make with the humans that live in them. So thank you for doing all of that.
Yeah, and thank you, like all the work you do with all the advocacy and all the promotion and the amazing marketing and social media activity that you have on LinkedIn and things with Offsite Dirt. Keep it up. It's a credit to our industry, and thanks for everything you do as well.
Thank you so much. That's so nice, Rhys. And there is another episode for our offsite construction series. We are cheering on ROC Modular. We're cheering on all the rest of those modular factories that are making a difference in the way that we build better. So thank you all for being here. And that's the dirt on Offsite Dirt. Have a great day.